Hey y'all, my name is Nick and welcome back to State of Woods Co. So just a couple weeks ago around Thanksgiving, my best friend came to me and she said, can you build me a desk for my son? He loves to draw. He's always drawing and painting and doing all kinds of things, but he needs a place to do it. I said, absolutely, let's make it happen. So thoughts jumped into my head. Let's do an awesome mid-century modern drawing desk. We'll design it. We'll go to the lumber yard. We'll pick out rough sawn lumber. We'll mill up our own stock. We'll make it from scratch, our own personal design, and we'll give it to him. And she was so excited. And then she said, I need it in 3 weeks by Christmas. I've already said yes, and I like the kids, so it has to happen. So we're gonna build this desk in 3 weeks, and we're gonna knock it out, and you're gonna come along with us. Come on. Bruh, we don't have time for the mushy gushy stuff, so stop filly farting around, get to milling, and let's make this desk.
Well, all right. So we picked up some 6/4 and 8/4 white oak from the hardwood store a couple days ago. And the first thing to do is to cut everything down to a more manageable size at your miter saw. Then I took it over to the joiner and we faced two sides of each board. And then we can run it through the planer to get it down to the thickness that we want. For the main body of the desk, that's 1 1/8 inch thick. Then we take it to the table saw to face that fourth side. Now we're going to do the glue up for the main 4 pieces that make up the mitered box. We are going to glue up 3 of these panels. Once we laid out our pattern the way we want it, we go ahead and glue it up. I did let these set in the clamps for at least 4 or 5 hours, but I really didn't have a lot of time to wait. Once they're out of the clamps, they do have a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. But first we've got to trim the edges. I want to show you 3 ways to trim something this large. You can use a track saw, which is probably the easiest method, or you can use your miter saw as long as you're able to flip it over and align it up the right way. A stop block does help with that. Or my favorite, since I have one, is a radial arm saw. If you haven't seen this radial arm saw before, these tools are amazing, and I will be building a hood for the dust collection on this, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss that future video. Now it's time to cut everything to final dimension down at the table saw. Now there are digital plans available on our website with a link in the description below to that. There's a full cut list plus exploded plans and step-by-step instructions for the entire build. And now a handful of passes through the Supermax 2550 drum sander, and everything becomes silky smooth. Now to cut the 45-degree miters, some people like to use track saws, but since I have a table saw this large, I love to use the table saw. Now 2 of the panels become the top and the bottom, but the third panel that we glued up becomes the 2 end pieces. And we're able to use the same piece on the table saw because our grain pattern is so straight and so uniform that we still get that wood grain waterfall look. Now before we do our glue up of all the pieces, we want to cut a dado into each piece, which allows for the back panel of the desk. The back panel is going to be just under 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's recessed into the back of the desk by 3/8 of an inch. We went 3/8 of an inch deep on our dado. Now I could have set a dado stack up for this, but I was being lazy and I just ran multiple passes with my single blade. And now it's time to do the glue up. So what I'm marking now is for the supports for the glue up, which is in my case not going to be a domino because I'm not as fancy as these other people. I'm going to use a biscuit joiner. Now a biscuit will allow for a little bit of lateral movement during the glue up, unlike a domino would, but I don't have a domino, so I'm just going to use this. It works just as well. It's still going to be a really sound glue up. I did use blue painter's tape to help with squeeze out, although blue painter's tape inside a box is a little difficult to get out, so keep that in mind when you're doing yours. And now that I've got one side panel in, I can go ahead and drop the back panel for the desk. And this turned out to be a sort of a difficult glue up for me. Trying to do this all at one time with one person and a limited number of clamps, it was a bit of a challenge, but it got there. I think if I had had another set of hands and maybe some strap clamps, that would have helped a little bit more. But all in all, it fit together. It came out great. The seams were pretty tight. I did use pretty much all the clamps that I had, which reminds me, I have to go buy more clamps. Now that the main body of the desk is out of clamps, I wanted to put a little recessed cup holder into the top. I used some X-Fasten double-sided tape on a little quick jig that my buddy Chris made up on his CNC for me. I'll leave a link in the description below to his page. He makes some great resin artwork. I used my Triton router with a flush trim bit and I plunged down to the depth that I wanted. Just used the template as the guide and then cleaned it out, popped it off, did a little bit of sanding on it, and she was ready to go. I just have to do this twice, one on each side of the desk. And now it's time to work on the drawing part of the desk. This top's going to have a flip top for storage, also with an inset pencil holder on the very top. And to save you the bore of all that milling process again, I went ahead and made this quick little box. All the pieces were cut again at the table saw, including the miters. I just used a straight edge to draw the angle of the desk that I liked. You wanted to make sure to inset a couple inches so that you had a room for the ledge at the very top. And then what I did was just tape them all together. I did 2 at a time, put them on the bandsaw and cut them up. And then again, while they're still taped together, sanded everything until they all were nice and smooth. And yes, all these measurements and angles and everything are detailed in the plans listed below. Now, this glue up, again, was another one that was not your normal glue up. It was easier than the main box of the desk, but it still took a little bit of finagling. I used glue in the miters, but to help out, I did add a couple little pin nails. You don't really see them. I used the glue and sawdust trick to hide all those nail holes. Now off camera, I did do a glue up for the top or the lid of this drawing desk. I did it in one panel and then cut it into 2 pieces so I had the ledge and the top with uniform grain pattern across both. Now obviously when you try to butt 2 pieces up together with one at an angle, you're going to have a gap. So the easiest way to do it without having to do math is to get your square and just draw a straight line referencing your ledge, which is already flat. Then take it over to the table saw, find the right angle, rip it down, and it's going to be a clean, nice fit. And the top of this drawing desk cannot be finished until you put a little bit of chamfer just for that added detail on everything. Oh yeah, and a little cove bit in the router table and using stop blocks on either end makes quick work of adding a little recessed pencil holder in the top. Oh boy, here comes the fun part. It's time to work on the legs for this desk. Now, I am going to show you 2 different methods. One is out of this world and it's a blast to do, but both methods require us to do a glue up to get the stocks the size that we want. So we took it to the table saw and we cut up some pieces of wood and we're going to glue them together. Now like I said, this first method is a little bit unconventional, but it is completely safe and it is a blast to run. It is a table saw wood lathe. Izzy Swan put me onto this. I saw his videos and I loved it. I'll leave the link in the description below. Now my jig was far from perfect. You can see a little wobble there in the drill. I just had it out of balance, but it was safe. It was efficient. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun to run. I may do a video later on down the road on my specific lathe jig. Leave a comment down below if you think that's something I should do. And the second method, which is still fun but more traditional, is a standard wood lathe if you have access to it. You can also purchase tapered legs if you would like. And I cut everything flush at the miter saw with a quick chop, making sure to support the bottom where that taper is. Then I put a 5-degree angle on the tops of each leg to create the splay effect that I wanted for the design of this desk. And I attached these legs with a stretcher style setup underneath the desk. So a pair of legs were mounted to the stretchers and then the stretchers were secured to the bottom of the desk. A Forstner bit makes quick work of adding a countersink, and then I used 4-inch lag bolts with washers to secure the legs to the stretchers. Once all 4 of the legs were attached to the stretchers, I went ahead and flipped the desk over and put the units on the bottom, making sure to drill holes all the way through the stretcher down into the desk so that I could insert these threaded inserts. I love using threaded inserts for this type of application. Alright, so now attaching the actual desk top to the main body of the desk, I use the biscuit joiner again to make some slots, and then I use these Z-clips. Z-clips allow for good wood movement, and it made it really easy to attach this box to the desk itself. Now, because this was going to be a drawing desk, I wanted to eliminate any type of texture that comes out from trying to draw or color on top of a wooden grain structure. So I'm using aqua coat to fill in all of the grain patterns. I used it with the grain to start with and then cross-hatched to make sure I filled in all of the gaps. Now, my favorite type of finish to spray on is lacquer, so I put 2 coats of sealer on it and then 2 to 3 coats of lacquer, lightly sanding in between, and it gives a great finish. Now remember, I had a really quick turnaround on this, so let's hope this thing came out nice. Let's take a look. I'm really happy with how this desk came together, and just in time for Christmas. We made it. Like, literally. I hope you enjoyed this build, and will check out the plans on our website, as well as subscribe to the channel for our next upcoming builds. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. And I hope you enjoy the desk, buddy.
Thank you for my desk.